Aloha friends, and welcome to Eating Richly, where we cook mostly healthy, affordable, family-friendly recipes rich in nutrition and flavor. If you're new here, I'm Diana Johnson, cooking instructor, recipe developer, lover of all things food, and today we are making one of my favorite fall canning recipes, cranberry applesauce. We're just coming up on the end of the season for local apples here in Western Washington, which means I have baskets and baskets of apples to preserve before they go bad. October is when I make big batches of apple butter along with my no sugar added applesauce and today's cranberry applesauce. By the way, apple butter is hopefully coming up in a few weeks. Now, cranberry applesauce is not just cranberries and apples. I pack it with the flavors of fall. There's cinnamon, cloves, fresh orange zest, a hint of maple. It's got this rustic, earthy, comfort food taste that is just perfect this time of year. We usually eat cranberry applesauce as a snack or a healthy dessert, but I also love to bring a big jar of it with me to Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. I'll give it to the host and then let them decide if they want it to be a part of the meal or keep it for themselves. Cranberry applesauce goes great with turkey, chicken, ham, lamb, prime rib, pretty much any meat that you're gonna be serving for the holidays. I'm really excited to make this with you, and as we go along, I will talk about some of the variations that you can try. As always, I've got the recipe written out in the description below, as long as a link there and in the corner for the printable recipe card on eatingrichly.com. And before we get started, I would so appreciate if each of you could smash that like button, subscribe, and click that bell so that YouTube knows to promote our content and you don't miss any of our weekly videos. Now let's get cooking, because whether you're cooking with someone, or for yourself, cooking time is connecting time. For this recipe, you're going to need 4 pounds of apples, 12 ounces or up to 1 pound of fresh or frozen cranberries, a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of real maple syrup, a tablespoon of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of ground cloves, a tablespoon of fresh orange zest, and a 1/4 cup of water. For the cranberries, I usually buy the 2-pound bag of fresh cranberries from Costco. I'll use half of them in the cranberry applesauce, and then I'll freeze the other half for sometime later in the year when I want cranberries and can't find them. For the apples, you can weigh them in the grocery store if you want. I weigh them at home using a bowl on my kitchen scale, but you can also just use 10 medium-sized apples. This is also a great recipe for using those apples with bruises that people seem to not want to eat. You can use any variety of apples you have, but I recommend ones that are on the sweeter side, like Jonah Gold, Sweet 16, Gala, or Fuji. The cranberries are really tart, so sweeter apples help to balance that out better. You'll also have several options for how you cut up your apples. If you like a chunkier applesauce, you're going to want to peel the apples first using a vegetable peeler or a paring knife. If you plan to puree your cranberry applesauce, you can leave the peels on and slice your apples using a push-down or spiralizing peeler, or just cut them with a knife. Whatever method you choose, you're going to dump your apples into a big, heavy-bottomed pot like a Dutch oven. Add your cranberries on top of the apples, and then pour on that real maple syrup. I like to start with a 1/4 cup and then add a little more at the end if I think it needs a bit more sweetness. Next comes your tablespoon of ground cinnamon and a teaspoon of ground clove. At this point, I also like to add an optional 1/2 teaspoon of salt. This doesn't make your cranberry applesauce salty, it just helps to mellow the bitterness of the cranberries. Finally, you're going to use a microplane grater to get the zest of a whole orange in there. This is just the orange part of the peel, not the bitter white part underneath. Then pour in that little bit of water, which will help keep the ingredients from sticking and burning on the bottom while waiting for the apples to release their juices. Let this cook for about 10 minutes on medium-high heat, then give everything a good stir. After that, I turn the heat down to medium-low and put a lid on to trap that steam. Let your cranberry applesauce cook on low for another 20 minutes, just taking the lid off every 5 minutes or so to stir and make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom. Notice how your apples are getting nice and soft, and there's now this lovely syrup bubbling away in the bottom of the pot. At this point, your apples are soft enough that you can start mashing them with a spoon. If you peeled your apples and you want chunky applesauce, you can use a potato masher or a spoon to mash those apples to your preference. If you left the peels on, it's time to use an immersion blender to get everything nice and smooth. I will leave a link to my favorite immersion blender in the description in case you need one. If you need to, you can add a little bit more water to help puree the applesauce and then let it simmer a little bit to cook off that excess liquid before canning. Now you can fill up a couple of quart-sized mason jars and let them cool before storing them in the fridge, or can them using a water bath canning method. This recipe makes 14 to 16 half a cup servings, so make sure to factor that in to your holiday menu plan. All right, let's give it a try. This is so good with so many flavors. Wow. You have acidity and a little bit of bitterness, very, very slight, from the cranberries. Then there's that bright orange flavor from the orange zest. There's a woody flavor from the cinnamon, and a really, really slight pungent hint of cloves in there. And honestly, I can't even taste the maple. It's just a sweetness with the apples. It's so perfectly balanced. It's so good. You like it?
I don't like it. I love it.
I hope that you enjoy this cranberry applesauce as much as we do. And let me know in the comments if you have a favorite fall recipe or if there's something you'd like to see me make. Just remember that whether it's with me, in the comments, or out in the world, you can be real and be kind. I hope that you've liked and followed so we can stay in touch. And if you want another great apple recipe, here's all 3 kids helping me to make healthy apple muffins. And I'll see you in the next video. You also have several apples. Yes, you did. Where did it go? Did you find it? Can you get it?